No, okay. So, who am I? For those who don't know, I'm Dylan J. I am CTO, and we have of Predigov. We're in London and UK, but I happen to live in Bangkok. So I've been. First time I came to Japan was when I went to the first Plone conference in Washington, and I'm no longer the longest flight. 5.5 hours from Bangkok. Yeah. We're going to have the second ever PyCon Thailand next year. Me and John were both part of the organizing committee, so please come next year. This was the logo. So we had a problem. We wanted to build, this is my company, we wanted to build a product. We're a consultancy, we want to build a product. So then we have a very small team. So then you have this prioritization problem, right? Because we've got stung time and time again where you have these big ideas and you have lots of ideas, and the ideas you have don't turn out to be the most effective things to build always in that order, even though all the ideas are often really good. So how to prioritize? So we're kind of burnt by this developer intuition where I'd say this is the thing, right? So if you have a look at the wiki page for psychological biases, there's an awful lot, and then you read through them and you go, there's a lot that applies to us as developers, right? So I won't go into them in too many details, but the biggest one is that we as developers, we see ourselves as very objective and very rational and stuff, and we don't actually think we have biases. We use our own, this is the scratch your own itch problem, right? That's what we believe in, that open source is scratching our own itch. The problem is that we're building software not for ourselves, right? We're building software for other users in some cases, so that our itches are not the itches of other people who aren't represented by the people actually in the room. And this is all about the fact that we go for the things that are kind of easy and well understood to us, and some of these airy-fairy user experience things are really hard to quantify. Then curse of knowledge is the fact that we're all experts and we don't understand what it's like to look at something with brand new eyes. Bandwagon effect is the fact that we all get into a conference, we all get into a room, we have a big, long 2020 discussion, and everyone's all on the same page because you have this sort of groupthink kind of going on. These are all biases that happen that can get us along one thing. So we were trying to come up with a process within our company to try and work against those biases. So I wasn't just sitting around the developers going, this is the new feature, this is the one we're going to build. So the first thing we did was, instead of saying, voting on one particular thing is like, how many people want this, we split up the kinds of classifications for the different features and bugs we want to work on. So this is our particular list, but obviously it depends on what you market for. So the number one priority that we wanted to do was things that that things that was like a USP, a unique selling proposition that people would look at and go, that's something that could sell. Now our particular process was we were thinking about how can we sell it first and then build it better later, and that you'll notice that through this prioritization. So then it's like, there's features that everyone kind of else has that we sort of need to have, right? So they're the dull kind of features, right? Then you've got the sort of tick boxing kind of things. This probably should be a little bit lower, maybe, sort of compliance and stuff. Then you've got all the UX kind of stuff, right? This is maybe what we sort of focus on a little bit more, is that, things like, if you're getting lots of support complaints, the thing's not quite easy to use. Now, if you're the way you're making, in open source, it's word of mouth, so maybe things like UX and usability, people who actually experienced it and not having demos done to them, then that would actually be higher priority, right? So it depends on your method of sale. Then the power users, productive, these people we kind of leave till later. And then, things like actually making the system scalable, changing the back-end, language and scalability comes kind of last, right? We want to get the money in first, right? And then build a better system after. Because if you don't have the users, if you don't have the money, then you can't pay the developers and you can't make it scalable. So the second thing was all the features and stuff we write as problems, not as solutions, which is a little bit tricky. But the reason we do that is because it's reminding us why. We're not losing so many times it's like the name, you know, like we're going to do a workflow editor becomes the goal, and you forget why you're doing it. And often conditions have changed, and then you've kind of lost sight of that, and you don't know why you're doing it anymore.
All right, time is up. Thank you. All right, next, David Glick is going to talk to us about the newest Python web framework, and after that will be Alexander.
Hey, I'm David Glick, and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking the world really needs another Python web framework. Well, you're in luck. Yesterday I was at the training for Guillotina, and it's great, really exciting. It kind of keeps all of the great features that we love from Plone, but gets us that in Python 3 and with async IO, all this new stuff. But I'm not here to talk about Guillotina. Naming things is hard, and there's been some criticism of the name Guillotina, and I'm not here to say that it's the wrong name, but there's people asking, you know, maybe it's a little bit violent. I don't see Ramon here, but he would say, you know, Guillotina is the Catalan word for paper cutter, so it's fine, but maybe you just aren't that excited about paper cutters. So I was thinking, what could we, you know, names are just names. You can have two names for the same thing. So what's another name we could give that's maybe appealing, maybe kind of cute, has some history with Plone? So of course I thought of Hello Kitty. But then I thought, well, maybe there's some trademark issues with that. So let's tweak it a little bit. So I woke up this morning super early because of jet lag, and I created a package. So now you can pip install Kitty Cat. And I'm going to give a little quick demo. So here's a virtual env. I pip install Kitty Cat, and now I just type Kitty Cat. We fire up web framework. Default settings, board 8080. Root has just the JSON like Guillotina does. This is just Guillotina. If I go to the admin site, we get the kitty management interface, which is called Cat Herder, by the way. And that's really all there is to the demo. It's just Guillotina under the hood. If you like Guillotina, feel free to keep using it, calling it that. If you want another option to pitch it to somebody who isn't such a fan of big knives, then pip install Kitty Cat.
All right, thank you, David. Alexander is taking the stage, and after that will be Andreas. So for those of you not familiar with what exactly lightning talks are, this is a chance for any one of you, if you want to speak about something, to come up here. We have a sign-up sheet. These will also happen tomorrow and the day after. So just sign up your name. You will get 5 minutes, and we will cut you off at 5 minutes like we did with Dylan. But this gives you the opportunity to talk about whatever you want. Mostly we take things that are Plone related, but you'll see other random things as well. All right, Alexander, go ahead.
Well, I want to talk about one easy thing, that if we're writing documentation, sometimes if we're using some options or don't know them, it's hard to write something. If we know them, it's sometimes easier to get something done. So why? I attend the React training on Monday from Rob, which was fantastic, from presentation and everything. Only it was hard to follow some of the documentation in the documentation because you're not knowing what has changed from one step to another. And, well, there is already a pull request fixing that issue, and some of the people that writing the documentation don't know that there are possibilities. So what was it? That was like the talk was in the beginning. So you have just a clean representation of the code and everything in without highlighting anything. And after it, you have line numbers, you highlight the changes with all the stuff. I hope you can see it here. So there are several lines highlighted visually in the code. There's actually a patch div also attached to all larger changed slides so that you can actually follow what has changed from one step to another. And, well, sometimes it's just 3 lines that you need, so that you say, put line numbers on if you start from a specific line, or emphasize the lines to highlight that. And there's also the possibility with code block depatch, and the one command is missing. Yeah, so you can set the right highlighter. So Pigments has a list of lexers that uses. Sometimes you need additional, like the one for JSX, so JavaScript templating. And to generate divs, just use your Git tool. It generates with the -p option patch div, so that you can include into your documentation. And I please you, if you can do anything that makes the documentation a bit more easier to follow, to understand more, do it. Thank you.
This thing?
Yeah.
Okay, Andreas is getting his computer set up. After that will be Sally.
Perfect. Hi, I want to talk about a different third approach doing Plone migrations. We know all the in-place migrations of ZDB and transmogrifier. And we've been using Plone REST API in latest projects for doing basically search way doing migrations. Basically, we had the requirement that the customer had about 10 Plone sites for 1 and for 3, and they were basically 10 years old, completely inconsistent, maintained to that over 10 years and so on. And so we want to migrate the 10 sites into Plone 5.1, and the goal was basically having a new theme, consistent look and feel, new deployment, and you also wanted to migrate to reduce the dependencies. There were basically 15 to 20 packages in the old build-outs, and now we have basically something like 4. So huge reorganization. And we basically want to start fresh, so basically the in-place migration that comes with Plone out of the box wasn't an option for us. Also, transmogrifier has too much magic. We could discuss that, but we just want to have some kind of script. We have basically full control over the script. And every source that was basically a bit different. We had a massive consolidation of archetypes from something like 30 archetype with different content types into something like 5 or 6. Lots of site restructuring and so on. So basically consolidation at all fronts on the content level, structure level, and so on. And that's why we developed our own migration script for this purpose, and it uses YAML-based configuration. It's basically running against the source system. On the target system, we have basically the Plone REST API and a little provision API implemented as browser view, which provides basically some additional functionalities like creating a new site, provisioning with initial site ID, initial setup. We can install additional add-ons. We have some support that wasn't available in Plone REST API, and then the last release, like setting the original UID on the content objects, because you have the existing resolved link UIDs and so on. They had to work. We did some small add-ons for setting navigation routes, setting default pages from the migration script. And as I said, just a few functionalities. And in general, that's meta code. Basically, on the source side, we create the site, provision the site. Then we have some functionalities for creating migrating the users and the groups. Then we walk over a list of given folders, so we can also migrate subfolders from the site if you don't want to migrate the whole site. And then you basically collect all the objects and recreate the paths, the folders, and so on. So it's a workflow. So it's basically our own pipeline, also built with transmogrifier. And lessons learned, basically, using Plone REST API is basically completely stable. We never had any problems with that. Our largest sites have something like 10 to 15,000 objects, and we could migrate them in about 60 to 90 minutes, which is fine, works for us. And usually using this approach, you could basically migrate something like 80 to 90% of the content structure, users, and so on. But we always had something like 10 to 20% for recreating or making changes that would be too much effort for writing the code. So something like setting default pages in some cases, fixing content, or recreating collections in some cases, because the collection in Plone 4 are different from the ones in Plone 5. And we had to deal with collage in several sites. And in general, the approach worked out well after migrating 3 or 4 sites, because the other 6 sites basically just could be migrated without changes. And we basically used the same approach for a new project, and there's some rewrite going on after that, and I think we will release that at some point. Thanks.
All right, Sally is up, and next after that will be Romino Luz.
Oops, sorry. I'm getting set up here. Another plug, remember to fill out your add-on nominations. If you can do it today, it'll make it my life easier tomorrow, so please fill out those nomination forms. There's a bag that's labeled out on the desk. All set. All right, I'm here to plug the Sorrento. Can I take this out? I'm here to plug the Sorrento Sprint that Eric mentioned this morning. It's an awesome event that has been happening in the spring for about a decade, over a decade. We skipped the one this year, which was really a pretty major tragedy in the Plone community, so we're trying to get it together to do it this year, to do it oh, I wrote 2018. That should be 2019, obviously. It's a future sprint, not a past sprint. So write it down. Those are the dates. It's at the Hotel Mediterraneo, which is a beautiful spot in Sorrento, right on the coast. The topic is going to be Plone front-end modernization, like Eric said. Basically, these are all shots from the area, of course. Basically bring Plone more in line with what's expected in CMS these days. We want to I wrote this not really knowing that much about Volto and all the new stuff, because I've been kind of disconnected. In Jazz Carter, we mostly work on big CMS-y sort of sites with traditional Plone. So this was my take at it, but you guys translated into the right thing. Anyway, it'd be nice to have kind of a lot of cross-fertilization happening between the folks that have been working on the new stuff and the folks that are still working on the old stuff. So kind of bring both traditional Plone and future Plone improvements together. Make sure that all the new, whatever cool stuff we're doing is available in both ecosystems. And also bring together the developers from kind of both communities. And allow for a great venue for exchanges and cross-fertilizations and thinking about what the future is. We want to focus on efforts with high impact for both developers, integrator, and most important, technical users, because those are really our clients that we want to make happy. Possible subtopics that we've thought about, obviously the Volto stuff that you've been hearing about so much today. The things that, like my itch that I'd like to scratch, is to get more content quality checkers into Plone, especially some accessibility checkers, and make some accessibility improvements in Plone. I'll be talking about that tomorrow. Maybe service workers, maybe some UX improvements. Obviously, the list could go on, and additional suggestions from the community are welcome. We have the prices. Prices include breakfast and dinner. 1 person in a double room, 2 people in a double room, and 3 people in a triple. And I guess apparently maybe there are 2 4-person rooms available too. So yeah, and we have a deadline. The hotel wants us to commit or not, so we need to get a minimum number of people signed up by February 28th for this to work. So please start putting this into your calendars and into your planning. We have a news that Kim just published on plone.org, a news item about it. We don't have a registration URL yet, but that's hopefully coming soon. So please plan on it and come to Sorrento and sprint this spring.
Thank you, Sally. And next up is Ramiro. And after that will be Nate, and that's the last talk for today. So if you happen to think of anything that you want to talk about to present a lightning talk, sign up tomorrow. The sign-up sheet is on the table just on the other side of this wall. It'll be sitting there all day.
Okay. Well, I am a home brewer. I will teach you to home your own brewer in 5 minutes, okay? There is one organization, Free Brewers. We have several recipes here. Okay. We did a beer for the Plone conference, the Python Brazil conference on Florianópolis, the city I was born. The recipe is rubber boa. All recipes are named after snakes. This is the label of the bottle. Those who contribute to the financial of the brewing got 1 bottle, 2 bottle, and some stickers. This is the recipe. It's in Portuguese, sorry. This is the process of brewing. So there is the grain silo. We mill the grain, put in a mashing tun, and after the mashing tun, where the sugar is extracted from the grains, and we add water and filter and stuff like that. Then we go to the fermentation, for the boiling. After the extraction of the sugar, we boil the beer, and we cool it because otherwise the yeast could die. So we cool the beer first, put in the fermentation, wait for like 30 days. It's at home at 30 days. And then we wait some days to clarify the beer and put in the maybe a bottle or barrels or stuff like that, okay? And this is the simple equipment you can have at home. So it's a automatized single vessel panel. I have to look there because it's not. So this single vessel have a grain basket here. So with the beginning of the brewing, you put hot water from we circulate water to extract the most of the sugar we can to have more efficiency. Then there's a resist, something that heat the beer. It's not beer yet, but the liquid that is there. Okay. This basket, it's movable, so we take it off. And this is a chiller. It cools down the beer to put in the fermentation. To put in the fermentation, it can be like a bucket. And well, if you want, someone of you like to brew your own beer, you are invited to put your recipe on our repository, like David, I know. So thank you. If you need any help, can send me an email. I can help you to brew your own beer.
Thank you, Ramiro. And now Nate is going to talk about pre-commit. That's all I know.
That's all that's on the paper. Yeah, this one should work. Do I have 3 or 5 minutes? 5, awesome. What? Where? I don't see the timer. Where's the timer? Oh, okay. Oh, it's not working. Let me try this one. It froze.
Well, Philip suggested that I have some jokes ready just in case something happened. So the first one that comes to mind is my husband's favorite joke that he likes to tell
Just
is,
killed it.
so a duck walks into a bar, sits down, and says, "I'd like some grapes, please." And the bartender looks at him like, "No, we don't have grapes here. Go away." And the duck leaves. Next day, the duck comes back into the bar. He walks up there, sits down, says, "I'd like some grapes, please." And the bartender like, "No, we still don't have grapes. Go away." And the duck leaves. Third day, the duck comes back and sits down at the bar, says, "I'd like some grapes, please." Now the bartender's angry. He's seen this duck 3 days in a row. Like, "No, we don't have grapes. If you come back again, I'm going to nail your bill to this bar." And the duck says, "Okay," leaves, comes back the next day, sits down at the bar and says, "I'd like a hammer and nails, please." And the bartender says, "Well, I don't have a hammer and nails." And so the duck says, "Okay, well, I'd like some grapes, please."
Oh, this one's awake. Try it again.
I was hoping that would be enough time.
Another one. No.
I don't.
You're going to have to do another one. Surely
Okay.
you have more than one ready.
I do. Yeah, I have another one in mind. It's a stereotype, so I'll just say a woman who's not very smart. Oh, we got it. Okay, I got to finish my joke now, though. So this woman goes, gets on a plane. She's supposed to be in coach, but she sees there's a first class seat open, so she goes and sits in first class. And the stewardess comes by and says, "You don't have a first class ticket. You need to go back to the back." And she says, "Well, I am a woman, I am beautiful, and I'm going to stay right here." And the stewardess doesn't know what to do about that. She goes and talks to another stewardess. It comes to the lady and says, "Okay, you need to go back and sit in coach. You don't have a first class ticket." And the lady just says, "Well, I'm a woman, I'm beautiful, and I'm just going to do what I want. I'm going to stay right here." So they go and get the captain, and the captain comes back and talks to the lady and just kind of whispers to her, and the lady just stands up, grabs her things, and goes back to coach. So the stewardess looks at the captain and said, "Well, what did you say to her?" I said, well, I told her first class wasn't going to Denver."
Anyhow. Yeah, so after my talk about testing, a number of people came up and asked me, what do I use for pre-commits? For pre-commit hooks, and I said pre-commit, and they said, "Yeah, exactly, for pre-commits." And I said, "Yeah, pre-commit." "Yeah, but what do you use for pre-commit?" "Pre-commit." "Yes, for pre-commit." Well, it's an actual, naming is really hard, David, you're right. So there's an actual Python package called pre-commit. It has really good documentation. It works across languages. So we use it even for all of our projects, whether they Golang or PHP or React based, and also Python, and I encourage you to look at it. We used the code analysis recipe from Plone up until about a year ago, and we're super happy since we switched over to pre-commit. It's faster, it breaks less, and it has better features. And maybe it's time for Plone to embrace the things from the larger Python community, as we've done several times in the past. There's also another repository online. I've already tweeted the link. And there's our basic pre-commit config, so you can look at how we do things. So for example, we use isort and flakecake. And a really cool thing about pre-commit is if I have it here, you can say that, for example, this check, which is really slow, run it only when I push and not on every commit. And you can do this for any of these things. So you can play around. By the way, this whole repository is about makefiles and how we use makefiles for our projects to make a memorable way to install and run them, because we have several repositories, and I don't want to remember how exactly to run tests on this project that is Plone, and on this project that is an old version of Pyramid, and on this Golang project, and on this how do I build React. So we have a kind of a convention to have like make, which would install things, make run would run the program, for example, start Pyramid or Plone. This is how you run tests, this is how you run browser tests, this is how you format the code. For example, in Python that would be black. This is how you store things, checks things, linting, whatever. And there's also an example makefile for that. Sorry, now first we're going to go, what of the packages that we use, if someone wants to look at that. For example, the Flake plugins that I was telling you about before. And then there's provided a makefile. For example, this would be for Pyramid. If I really don't want to memorize this, so I just memorize it on every project, make run. We've had, this idea, this approach was shown to me by Andreas Ziedler back when we were starting Plone API. I hope Plone API still uses this. I don't know. Does it? Anyone? Nobody knows? Okay. Yeah, and this is how you would run, for example, all the checks in your pre-commit file. And this is how I would run MyPy. So it's really cool if you have multiple projects to have a single convention of how to run basic things, instead of having them in a documentation file where they're gonna bitrot and they're gonna be wrong, and a new person will come and say, well, this command doesn't run. You have them in makefile, so you run them all the time and basically keep them tested. That's it. Enjoy.
Thank you very much. So, thank you for the presentation, for the lightning talk, and